Barry, we're into the 2013-14 season now. The first ranking tournament, the Wuxi Classic, new format with everyone coming in the first round. Qualifying rounds, we saw a few new faces coming through, Reanne Evans particularly. How do you feel it's working so far?
Well, I've got to say, it's delivering what I thought it would deliver, Ivan. We had 15 of the top 64 players that didn't make it through. So 15 guys got their chance, which is about, it's called level playing fields, isn't it? It's called ability being the only criteria for success. I was very, very happy. It's going to be great to see who wins the first major ranking event of the season. And there are some new names and new faces and people that have grasped the opportunity.
And of course, then we had the Bulgarian Open, and of course, the PTC events are all a level playing field, and yet we still see Ronnie O'Sullivan, John Higgins, Neil Robertson, and Barry Hawkins in the semi-final. So, in a sense, it's still the cream rising to the top, isn't it?
Well, I think that's, what do you expect to see? These are the best players in the world, and they're getting to the final stages of a relatively short-run event, best of 7. You'd expect more upsets. In fact, the cream does really rise to the top. So, top players, good pros, really should have no concerns about an open format. The people that should be worried are perhaps people who are seeded above where they really should be seeded. They're the ones that are going to be put under pressure. The kids coming in, the new players coming in from around the world, have got the opportunity to make a name for themselves, and we're seeing some of those people make big waves, and we'll see more of that over the months ahead. But overall, I'm very pleased with the way the system is. I think the Wuxi is going to be a great event. I think Bulgaria shows where we're trying to take the game. Who'd have thought 13 or 1,400 people watching snooker in Bulgaria? It's a major plus for the people on the ground that have done the hard work, and it shows that there is a demand for snooker. The viewing figures on Eurosport are tremendous. The crowds are great. The sport's in a good place, and it's time for positivity, not negativity. You'll never get it all completely right. But the fact is we're opening new markets. We're spreading the game. We've doubled the prize money. All of these things are very positive. And class will tell. It was great to see Ronnie in Bulgaria. A lot of people said, will Ronnie O'Sullivan just play in the World Championships every year? He loves playing snooker. He went to Bulgaria. Wonderful to see John Higgins come back with a big win. Beating Ronnie in the semis, a big boost for John. Didn't have the greatest year last year. He looks as if he's back to his best. Neil Robertson, we know, is a great player. And Barry Hawkins, that was no flash in the pan when Hawkins got to the final of the World Championships. He's a quality player. And I'm very happy with these flag bearers that we're developing now. And the fact is, the world is our oyster.
Just coming back to Reanne Evans briefly, great achievement for her to qualify for Wuxi. She was then drawn against a wild card rather than having to play Neil Robertson in the first round. A lot of people might say that's really unfortunate for her. What would you say about that?
I think it's unfortunate for her, but of course she knows the rules. It was all laid out in the entry pack that there is a random draw for 4 wildcard spots. And before we criticise wildcards, let's all admit we don't like wildcards. There are times you have to pay a price to make inroads into new territories, and wildcards is one of those prices. Over time, they will disappear as the market matures. But, especially in the case of our Chinese friends, we have contracts, and we have to honour those contracts. So number one, it was no surprise Reanne knew that she may have to play a wildcard because it was in her entry pack. I would have rather seen her not play one, but that's the way the cookie crumbles. Also, you have to probably say, Reanne Evans even qualifying, effectively she becomes a wild card herself, doesn't she? She's not a tour member. She gained admission to the event on the back of highest placed non-qualifier for a tour from the Q school. So she's done very well to get there. She's a beneficiary herself of the new system, but she has to follow the rules that are applicable to everyone else. And the good news for her is if she qualifies in the future, of course, she won't be eligible for a wildcard competitor next time round. Rules are rules, and all been laid out in the entry pack to all the players.
Last season we saw 11 different winners of the 11 different ranking events. Just looking ahead to this season, can you see the same kind of thing happening again? Do you think there's anybody who can dominate these days?
No, I don't think anyone can dominate, because I think on a level playing field, with the standard of competitive play being so high and so many events, that we will see a whole variety of ranking winners. That's not to say that someone won't win 2 or even 3 of the events, but I don't see anyone dominating it, a la Steve Davis in the 80s and 90s and Stephen Hendry. I think, Ronnie obviously would be a favourite for most events on the basis of he turned up for the World Championships and won it and played great. But he's going to have a lot of competition because the rewards are so high now and the demands on players are so intense. There will be more players picking and choosing what events they go in to play because I'm glad to say the schedule is pretty full. And look for this spot because there'll be more announcements in the future about additional events. But as I said earlier, snooker's in a good place now. We are getting demand for events globally. Our television broadcast deals are substantial around the world. The players have their responsibility to deliver, and they're doing that in spades. They're delivering first-class action that's being watched by tens of millions of people globally. We will find over the course of this year that there will be big shocks from players that perhaps are not on our radar at the moment, that are getting their chance and are good enough to make a name for themselves. That's, to me, is going to be the future of the game. It's going to be fascinating watching these new characters evolve on what is a truly global platform.
Just finally, Barry, how exciting and how satisfying is it for you to see the tour developing, to see these great events in new places with thousands of fans watching them?
It's why I got involved to start with, I'm getting older. I need this bit of excitement in my life, Ivan. I need to build something. It's what I do for a living for the last 40 years. I love the sport of snooker. It's what started me off in my career. I feel I owe the sport something. Obviously, a relationship with people like Steve Davis for coming on for 40 years is something that's made a big impression in my life. But to actually see a British originated sport, if you want to call it that, become a global sport, to see people transform themselves from just sportsmen to global superstars is very personally rewarding. And the fact that it's an industry there, against all the odds, in a recession, we can nearly treble the prize money in 3 or 4 years, shows that we're doing something right. And it's a teamwork exercise. We've got a great team of people, and we will make mistakes, as we do. But at the end of the day, you have to look at what the final product that we're delivering to the world. And that is a fantastic number of broadcast hours seen by hundreds and hundreds of millions of people, sponsored by some of the biggest companies out there, and paying the players the type of prize money they deserve. But, and this is the big but, we mustn't get complacent because we've only just begun. We've fallen miles behind golf, behind tennis, and we don't deserve to. So the job now is to push on. I think the next 5 years are going to be fascinating.